Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. May God's peace and blessings be upon you. Once again, this is Helmi, and we're going to be spending some time together under the general theme, One Eternal God, One Eternal Message. And this study is about what happens after death. Many people have questions about that, and many people have different ideas about it. Let's see what the holy books tell us. When the devil, Iblis, Satan, Satan, was able to deceive man, by that I mean mankind, he thought that he had won victory. But praise be to God that that wasn't the case. If we look at these verses in the Quran, again, Surah Al-Hijr, Surah 15, verses 41 through 42, and then 45 through 47. Allah said, "This way of my sincere servants is indeed a way that leads straight to me. For over my servants no authority shalt thou have, except such as put themselves in the wrong and follow thee. The righteous will be amid gardens and fountains of clear flowing water. Their greeting will be, enter ye here in peace and security, and we shall remove from their hearts any lurking sense of injury. They will be brothers joyfully facing each other on thrones of dignity." And if we go to the Gospel, Al-Injil, the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5 and verse 5. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5 and verse 5, we read, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." And we'll find out what kind of earth they will inherit. Going back to the Quran, we read in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, Surah 56, and verses 10 through 15, "And those foremost in faith will be foremost in the hereafter. These will be those nearest to Allah in gardens of bliss. A number of people from those of old, and a few from those of later times. They will be on thrones encrusted with gold and precious stones." In the Injil, the Gospel, there is a story that Jesus told. If we go to the Gospel of Matthew and chapter 25, verses 20 through 21, we read part of the story. Let me give you a setting. There was a master who left on a trip and gave his servants talents or bags of gold, different numbers. And then when he came back, these servants came to him with what they had done with the gold he left with them. And so we pick up where the first one came back. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. "Master," he said, "you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more." His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." Let's return to the Quran Surah Al-Ma'idah, there's a warning there for people who are unfaithful. Surah Al-Ma'idah, Surah 5, and verses 68 through 69. Say, O people of the book, ye have no ground to stand upon unless you stand fast by the law, the gospel, and all the revelation that has come to you from your Lord. It is the revelation that cometh to thee from thy Lord, that increaseth in most of them their obstinate rebellion and blasphemy. But sorrow thou not over these people without faith, those who believe in our Quran, those who believe in the Quran, those who follow the Jewish scriptures, and the Sabaeans, and the Christians, any who believe in Allah and the last day, and work righteousness, on them shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. Let's go back to the Torah. It's back and forth, but it's because it's one message, one eternal message. In the Zabur, the book of Psalms, and Psalm 37, verses 27 through 34, turn from evil and do good, then you will dwell in the land forever. For the Lord loves the just and will not forsake his faithful ones. Wrongdoers will be completely destroyed. The offspring of the wicked will perish. The righteous will inherit the land and dwell in it forever. The mouths of the righteous utter wisdom, and their tongues speak what is just. The law of their God is in their hearts. Their feet do not slip. The wicked lie in wait for the righteous, intent on putting them to death. But the Lord will not leave them in the power of the wicked, or let them be condemned when brought to trial. Hope in the Lord, and keep his way. He will exalt you to inherit the land. When the wicked are destroyed, you will see it. Now, sin is death, because the wages of sin is death. And if we don't get rid of sin, the end result is death. Just like we read in Romans, in the Injil, Romans, epistle or letter to the Romans, chapter 6, the first part of verse 23. Romans 6, 23, the first part. For the wages of sin is death. Going back to the Quran, and in Surah As-Safat, Surah number 37, Surah As-Safat, Surah number 37, verses 33 and 34. Truly, that day, they will all share in the penalty. Verily, that is how we shall deal with sinners. We had started the story about the faithful servant who had 5 bags of gold and went and worked, invested, and got 5 more. Now let's see what happened to the man who was given 1 bag of gold as he comes to the master with his account. So we go back to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25, verses 24 and 25, and then verse 30. Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid, and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. So take the bag of gold. So the master was so upset at this man. And in verse 28 we read, he says, so take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. We said that the wages of sin is death. Let's see what the Quran says about death. In Surah Az-Zumar, Surah 39, and verse 42. It is Allah that takes the souls of men at death, and those that die not, He takes during their sleep. Those on whom He has passed the decree of death, He keeps back from returning to life. But the rest He sends to their bodies for a term appointed. Verily, in this are signs for those who reflect. And just a note on this. If you believe that we wake up on our own, or that the alarm clock wakes us up, take as many alarm clocks to a cemetery and see how many people you can call back to life. It is God who gives us breath. Let's go now to the Gospel, Injil. We go to the letter sent to the Corinthians. First letter sent to the Corinthians. Chapter 15 and verses 51 through 54. Listen, I tell you a mystery. We will not all sleep, but we will all be changed. In a flash, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, the dead will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed. For the perishable must clothe itself with imperishable, and the mortal with immortality. When the perishable has been clothed with the imperishable, and the mortal with immortality, then the saying that is written will come true. Death has been swallowed up in victory. Staying in the Injil and the Gospel, and just a few pages after that, we go to the first letter to the Thessalonians, chapter 4 and verse 13. Brothers and sisters, we do not want you to be uninformed about those who sleep in death, so that you do not grieve like the rest of mankind who have no hope. There's a difference between the first death, which is sleep, and the second death, which is the real penalty of sin in the blazing fire. And we can find the image in the Quran in Surah Ad-Dukhan, Surah 44, and verses 50 and 51, and then verse 56. As to the righteous, they will be in a position of security among gardens and springs, nor will they there taste death, except the first death. Notice, except the first death, and He will preserve them from the penalty of the blazing fire. So there's a difference there. When we sleep, we don't know what's happening. We go to sleep and then we wake up, it's like a moment. God wakes us up in the morning. like we read, that he, in the Quran, he wakes up those he wishes to wake up. Now we read about the first death. Let's see about the first resurrection. We go to the Gospel, the book of John, Gospel of John, in the Gospel, the Injil, John 5 and verses 28 and 29. Do not be amazed at this, for a time is coming when all who are in their graves will hear his voice and come out. Those who have done what is good will rise to live, and those who have done what is evil will rise to be condemned. Going back to the Quran, Surah Ali Imran, Surah number 3. Surah Ali Imran, Surah number 3 in the Quran, and verse 185. Every soul shall have a taste of death, and only on the day of judgment shall you be paid your full recompense. Only he who is saved far from the fire and admitted to the garden will have attained the object of life. For the life of this world is but goods and chattels of deception. Let's go now back to the Gospel, the Injil, the last book in the Gospel, the book of Revelation. In the Gospel, the book of Revelation, and chapter 20, verse 6, and then verse 14. Blessed and holy are those who share in the first resurrection. The second death has no power over them. And verse 14, then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. The lake of fire is the second death. When that happens, the earth is desolate. There's nothing there. Now let's see what God will do. We'll go to the Torah, and the book of Isaiah, chapter 65 and verse 17. And we read, see, I will create new heavens and a new earth. The former things will not be remembered, nor will they come to mind. And in the Quran, in Surah Al-Fath, Surah 48, and verses 4 and 5, we read, it is He who sent down tranquility into the hearts of the believers, that they may add faith to their faith. For to Allah belong the forces of the heavens and the earth. And Allah is full of knowledge and wisdom, that He may admit the men and women who believe to gardens beneath which rivers flow, to dwell therein for aye, and remove their ills from them. And that is, in the sight of Allah, the highest achievement of man, for man. Back to the Gospel, Injil. Again, the last book, the book of Revelation in the Gospel, and chapter 21, and verses 1 through 8. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. He who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. Then he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. He said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty, I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the idolaters, and the liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death. We have a study that deals with the new heaven and the new earth. And we hope that after you spend time with this study, that you will take time also to look at that, because we will find out what heaven really is, what hell really is, where the new heavens and where the new earth will be. Until then, may God's peace and blessings be upon you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.